We're now holding a meeting of the Ag Conservation and Forestry Committee, and we'll begin with committee member introductions, starting with Representative McElwee.
Yes, I'm Carol McElwee, and I live in Aroostook County. I represent Prescott.
There you go.
No, I don't. There are hard drivers.
There are two of us.
I represent the city of Caribou and town of Westmoreland and New Sweet.
She loves me before.
I remember Caribou.
Good afternoon, I'm Ralph Chapman, representing House District 133, 6 towns in Hancock County of Blue Hill, Brooklyn, Brooksville, Castine, Sedgwick, and Surrey.
Good afternoon, AG Cmte from Fort Fairfield, and I represent District 148.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. And welcome to those who may be listening to us online. I'm Jim Jilla. I represent Senate District number 5. Starts in Beasley, goes up to Orno, Old Town, up the I-95 corridor, and ends at Milwaukee.
And Representative Saucier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. Bob Saucier. I represent House District 147 in Presque Isle.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mary Ann Kinney. I represent House District 99, 9 towns in Walden County.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming and making the effort to let us hear what you think. I'm Don Moran. I represent the town of Hollis, Carter, Buxton, and Valsaco.
My name is Greg Hickman. I represent District 81, Winthrop, Wheatfield, and a part of North Mountain.
Welcome, everyone. And I'm Peter Edgecombe, representing Senate District 1. That's the 37 towns in the northern half of Aroostook County. We also have with us our clerk, who just stepped out to check the folks that are signing up. And I'm sure you've seen her here. And she's coming in. And Ms. Nixon will pass out any testimony that you have. If you weren't allowed to pass out material to the committee, but she certainly is. And Dr. Michael Bryan is our analyst, and he's the one who's taking notes for us from the hearing. And we are here today for hearing 4 bills, and I'll read the information to it, but I think at this time I don't see any presenters here because you're going to be doing what? Okay, we will get to that in a second. Notice to be read to the committee chairs, by the committee chairs at each public hearing. We're supposed to read this. All persons testifying at this public hearing today are advised that the hearing is being broadcast throughout the building and on the internet, and may be heard or recorded by persons listening online. In addition, written testimony provided at the public hearing will be distributed to each member of the committee and will be posted on the Legislature's website for viewing by all interested persons. Persons testifying should be mindful that their testimony is public and will be available to all interested members of the public once it is presented. You are allowed to bring drink water in here or bring it to the podium if you would like. And if you have a cell phone or electronic device that makes a lot of noise, then please put it on silent. I think that's it. So we have, which bill, Representative Chapman, are you presenting?
925.
You have the top one. Now, I did make a promise to Senator Johnson. Did he say he was coming right along, or? Okay, I did. Well, he's not here. Representative Chapman, you may go. Okay. We may possibly, if you wouldn't mind, if he gets here before we start in with the public, once I start in with the hearing, it's difficult to, I don't like to interrupt, but if you could help us out this way, it would be nice. So this is LD 925, and I'll let, thank you, Representative Chapman, and you may introduce yourself and even the title of your bill if you would like. And by the way, folks that are here, we usually like to use a 3-minute clock, but legislators, sponsors, and legislators, we don't use the clock on it. Senator Edgecombe? Oh, well, Officially, it is open. The hearing is open.
Senator Edgecombe, Representative Hickman, and other members of the Joint Standing Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, Forestry. My name is Ralph Chapman, representing House District 133 in Hancock County. I'm presenting to you today LD 925, an act to promote small diversified farms and small food producers. When I appeared before this committee during the 125th legislature, I was able to report that 3 towns in my district had passed local food ordinances. Votes had been unanimous in 2 of the annual town meetings and had been greater than 98% at the 3rd annual town meeting. When I appeared before this committee during the 126th legislature, I was able to report that another half dozen towns in Maine had also passed the ordinance. Now there are well more than a dozen towns in Maine with some form of the ordinance which declares the rights of local farmers to sell direct to customers for home consumption without interference from burdensome state regulation and licensing. These local food and community self-governance ordinances are motivated in part by a recognition that our traditional community food culture is under threat and attack. Communities in Androscoggin, Hancock, Knox, Penobscot, Waldo, and Washington counties have enacted the ordinance. And I do provide a list. I marked it as a partial list. I'm not absolutely certain that I haven't left a town off here, so somebody who follows me might be able to correct the list that's on the back side of the page in front of you. The bill before you today provides similar exemptions statewide as the local ordinances from regulation and licensing for direct local sales between farmers and consumers. The often stated reason for food regulations and licensing is to promote food safety, a valued matter for all of us. To separate the scientific analysis portion of the discussion from the opinion portion, I find it useful to define risk as the probability of a hazard causing harm and safety as the acceptability of the risk. In this way, safety is recognized as a personal opinion and risk is a measurable, or at least estimable, fact. In the United States, the risk of dying from food poisoning, and this is a CDC estimate, is about 1/10 the risk of dying from an automobile accident. 80% of foodborne disease is caused by 3 pathogens, Salmonella, Listeria, and Toxoplasma. Illness, and in extreme cases death, occurs from the combination of contamination and improper handling. The importance of proper food handling is exemplified by the Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points, or HACCP, Food Safety Management System. Food production to consumer systems involving local direct sales inherently have reduced opportunities for mishandling due to the minimum of transfer steps and the reduced time for pathogenic growth. The likelihood of improper food handling within a person's home after purchase is independent of whether the food was purchased locally or through a national distribution channel. But the likelihood of contamination and adequate time for pathogenic growth is reduced in the case of locally produced food. There is no scientific statistical evidence to show that state regulation and licensing applied to small diversified local farms supplying local informed consumers contributes to the lowering of the risk for foodborne pathogen-related illness or death. The anecdotal evidence that some farmers have benefited from the educational value of interaction with state-level personnel provides a clue that increased use of public education around proper food handling may be an effective means toward keeping the risk of foodborne illness and death at a low level. Finally, the benefits of the economic condition of our state's burgeoning small diversified farms from this bill is worthy of your attention and support. I'm happy to answer any of your questions either now or at any time.
Questions for Representative Chapman? Seeing none? Thank you, Representative.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I did have one other thing that was passed out to you. It was an article from the Quaddy Times, Quaddy Tides, I'm sorry. It's a the most easterly published newspaper in the U.S. Their April 10th, 2015 edition gives a story of the town of Alexander adopting this local food self-governance ordinance, and it describes a little bit of what the ordinance says. That was the other piece that I just passed out to you. Sorry. Thank you.
And is that Ms. Holmes, is she from Alexander?
I don't know.
I mean, what town?
I don't know where the Quaddy Tides is published.
Eastport.
I assume that it's published in Eastport.
Adeste?
Alexander, if Alexander is just off Route 9 or
It is Eastport.
right off Route 9, shortly before you get to the Dallas State Sea crossing. In that area. Just close to it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I did see Representative Ward here. Okay, is Senator Johnson need to be talked about, or? Did you ask him if he'd like to testify? Okay, then we will proceed with, by show of hands, how many folks are here to testify on this bill? Quite a few, 1, 2, 6, 7. Okay, and Representative Hickman has the list. We'll see if I know how to open this.
While we figure out how to open our technology.
Go ahead, Jess.
First up will be Susan Miller.
Welcome, and you may get an extra few seconds here because I'm not going to hold you up from testimony. Just as soon as Windows gets us booted up here, we will be. We'll start here. But you may start when you're ready.
Okay. Honorable chairs and distinguished members of the committee, I would like to thank you for this opportunity to speak to you today in support of LV 925. My name is Susie Miller, and I own and operate a small farm in Somerset County. Small-scale farming is growing in Maine, as you may well know. Maine leads the nation in the percentage of new female farmers, and I personally know 5 of them. Right along with the growth of small, sustainable farms is the continued growth of the food sovereignty movement. There are 3 towns and 2 unorganized townships in Somerset County who are now in various stages of passing the local food and community self-governance ordinance or resolutions to that effect. Perhaps you haven't seen their faces here, but I assure you they exist and they are watching what this committee does. They come from a variety of backgrounds such as church groups and community fundraising groups, small farms, and the patrons of those farms. Most of them are Republicans. And I tell you that because I think there's a misconception that this is a Democrat issue. And in my county, that isn't the case. Very few of these people are politically active, though they vote. Yet they gather together and they pass around copies of this bill and other bills that we've heard here just in the past couple of weeks. You may be surprised to know that Maine is gaining a reputation of being friendly to small-scale farming. Farmers are packing up their seeds and their livestock, and they're moving to Maine because of this. A farm from Oregon moved to a small town in Androscoggin County in February. And a farm from Texas moved to a Kennebec County town last month. A woman from Illinois will be arriving in June, and a farm from Tennessee will be coming shortly thereafter. I wanted to know why these farms are moving to Maine after a winter like the one we just had. I wanted to go to Tennessee. So I asked them, and they said, well, Maine has a reputation of being friendly to small-scale farming because of the food sovereignty movement. The economic benefit of these farms moving to Maine is undeniable. This needs to be a farm-friendly state like they think. A friendly place for all farms, small and large. And I want you, the members of this committee, to know that we are anxiously awaiting your passage of this bill, or something like it. And I'm going to give you a short story about my best friend who decided that when her husband was dying, she had to do something to help take care of her children. And she loves the soil, and she loves to grow things. And so she decided, she's never been a welfare case, as we often hear. She's always worked hard for everything that she has. And together, as he was dying, they decided that she should do a cut flower farm. And she thought that it would be good to also, can her vegetables and her excess berries and sell them from a farm store. I hated to be the one to tell her that she can't do that. She didn't know that, and many people don't know that. And so that the laws are hindering people who want to take care of themselves. It's time that we allow them to do that on the scale that they can. And
Okay,
thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Susie, and I let you go on a little bit because I didn't make it clear that once you see it approaching where the clock is running out on you, if there's something important that we need to hear, please say it then, because you will be asked to complete it and cut it off at that point.
Okay.
So, and I didn't tell the folks that. So again, if you got important information, be sure you get it in before the clock runs out on you. Okay. And are there any questions? Thank you. And at this time, though, we are going to take a pause with testimony, because we did make a commitment to Senator Johnson. He has a very important meeting committee meeting that he's on that he needs to get back to. So Senator Johnson is going to present the second bill that's on the list, an act to expand local foods economy. And that's 1284, Senator Johnson.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for coming over when we called you.
Well, good afternoon, Senator Hitchcomb, Representative Hickman, and members of the Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry Committee. I'm Senator Chris Johnson, representing the same district still. It's the last time I'm here before you, Senate District 13 in the Mid-Coast region. I'm pleased to sponsor LD 1284, an act to expand the local foods economy. If you were in the 126th legislature, this bill will be familiar because it started as part of LD 1431, an act to support school nutrition and grow the local foods economy. That bill was passed by votes of 33-0 in the Senate and 120-19 in the House before being vetoed, successfully overridden in the Senate, but narrowly failing to veto override in the House. Last spring, the New England Food Vision report was released, which makes it clear that New England can produce more than 50% of the food we consume, instead of only about 10% today. And Maine, of course, has a huge role in achieving those food production levels, as we have the most land suitable and available for farming, plenty of water supply, and very significant seafood production as well. It's not just a possibility. It's extremely important to making Maine less dependent on food production elsewhere, to addressing our high food insecurity problem compared to New England and the U.S., and to improving the healthiness of Maine people. Maine has a great opportunity to help farming grow and help farmers earn a reasonable return for their work. Unlike that bill, however, LD 1284 recognizes that different farmers and different kinds of farm products have different local food infrastructure needs. It incorporates that lesson into the food hub idea, because different farmers envision different infrastructure as best adding value to the product of their labors, or even reaching different markets. I draw your attention to number 2A through J on pages 3 through 4 of the bill, which detail what a loan application must demonstrate. There is leeway in here for proposals that address those different infrastructure needs. LD 1284 provides small competitive grants for business plan development, followed by competitive loans. all to improve the capacity to efficiently reach markets with Maine-sourced foods, or increase the food value and the amount the producer earns for their product. Whether the need is more modern meat processing, a test lab to enable blending grains for more consistent flour quality, a shared-use licensed kitchen, minimal processing and aggregation and distribution, or malting of grain for Maine's craft brewing sector. This loan program can help with local foods infrastructure and adding value in a shortened food chain. And that, in the end, is good for farmers and consumers. A local foods infrastructure applicant may well be a new business or realignment of an existing business into the local foods sector. It matters not. What will be achieved through this bill is clearly communicated on page 3, lines 10 through 7. A business plan must leverage strategically important shared infrastructure, support expansion of agriculture, and the value farmers receive for their work. The business plan must seek to provide benefits such as increasing production capacity, creating new jobs, and providing new food processing capabilities that meet a significant local demand. An application must receive a higher ranking if it leverages producer operations that provide good stewardship of the land as a natural resource, or if the business plan advances development of a simple food chain with a short distance between the producer and the consumer. Those are both important because we're trying to promote farms that are here for the long haul, ones that are farmers taking good care of their land and making sure that it will be there to serve well food production for many generations. And it's also important to have a simple food chain, because the longer the food chain is, the harder it is for the producer to get a good return, producing a product that consumers are still willing to pay the price for. LD 1287 creates the local food infrastructure program to invest with a triple bottom line, benefiting our agricultural economy, protecting our resources, and providing healthy food for our people. Thank you, and I'd be glad to answer questions.
Questions for Senator Johnson? Representative Hickman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the last page of the, well, the second to last page of the bill, the last full page of the bill, as the advisory committee pilot program, section 9 is there, but it's not underlined. Does that already exist in statute?
The Maine Food Infrastructure Advisory does not exist.
Okay. I see it set up on the previous pages, but then this part of the statute doesn't have any underlined in it, and so that usually means that it's already in statute, that this is not new language. I'm just wondering why this is not all underlined.
Perhaps I'm looking at a different copy if I could grab it.
Page 6, Representative?
It's page 6.
There already was a pilot
Okay.
program in the statute.
I see
which
now
says-
what he's talking about.
I just expected that to be underlined because
Yeah.
it doesn't exist.
And this, because it is unallocated language,
Ah,
it's not statutory, so it's not being added to statute. It's the reason for
thank you. That answers the question.
Seeing no further questions, Senator Johnson, thank you for your testimony. Do you know if any co-sponsors that were going to be here?
I do not. I had some people who answered back that they would likely be coming, and I had some people that have, I believe, sent the clerks of written testimony that could not be here.
Okay, it was listed number 2, but we're going to revert back to finishing 1, then we'll pick right up on yours. So if any legislators, we usually allow them to come in and testify, even if they're late.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Help.
So we're just taking at ease on 1284 at this time and moving back to LD 925, and then why don't you read the next 2 or 3
Ron
names?
Dyer from the Department of Agriculture, Commerce, and Forestry, followed by Hendrick, Bex Darrell, Richard King, Marie King, Jim Schatz, Heather Redford, and John.
Welcome, Mr. Dyer.
Thank you. Good to be here. Senator Edgecombe, Representative Hickman, members of the Joint Standing Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry. I'm Ron Dyer, Director of Quality Assurance and Regulations with the Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry, speaking on behalf of the Department in support of LD 925, with some important food safety amendments and considerations for you to think about. The bill facilitates direct sales between Maine farmers and consumers. It allows persons preparing food in their own homes to sell directly to consumers or to offer homemade foods at certain events without being licensed as food establishments. DACF very much supports the goals espoused in this bill. To that end, the department provides dozens of programs and professional staff in a daily effort to enhance local foods, generate economic opportunity for family farms, and implement consumer-friendly, environmentally friendly, farmer-friendly, and sustainable agricultural practices. With 8,173 family farms in the last published agricultural census, as we heard a little bit about before, the growth in this area, Maine has the largest number of farms of any state in New England. We are proud to say that Maine currently has over 1,100 small food producers licensed by the department. These permits consist of an annual fee of $20 for home food processors. For that fee, we provide education and direct assistance to help small food producers maintain sanitary conditions and produce safe food. An important part of our ongoing support of Maine's growth in food-related businesses is our training and education work in cooperation with the University of Maine Cooperative Extension and private associations related to sectors such as meat processing, cheeses, and organic foods. This type of assistance provided by DACF and our partners is what we believe is most supportive of Maine's small, diversified farms and food producers. The significant public investment in the current assistance and licensing efforts all are part of our promotion of Maine's small, diversified farms and the small food industries. As the bill is considered, the department recommends the committee review the following food safety considerations and recommended amendments. Number one, the bill does not limit sales to the farm or the producer's property. Off-site sales break the intended link for a consumer to see a premises and make an informed decision. The foodborne illness traceability challenges inherent in this legislative proposal become more complicated if multiple uninspected handlers are permitted to move the product to multiple uninspected sites before it is sold to a consumer. Number two, only a food-related sickness would trigger the Commissioner's Consumer Protection Authority to enter a facility and then only to investigate an incident. DACF food safety staff will have no on-site presence until Section 416, Part 4. Commissioner's authority to investigate a foodborne illness is initiated after the fact by a call from a hospital or the Maine Center for Disease Control. Since this legislation proposes to reduce the level of state responsibility for safe food, a requirement for increased producer liability coverage should be addressed and considered in some manner. Number three, a product labeling notice should at a minimum inform consumers that the uninspected food may or may not meet food safety standards, since DACF staff have not seen or approved the facility or the products. The label should state, this product is not manufactured under license or inspected by the state of Maine. And finally, number four, this legislation does create an additional DACF obligation to inspect sites and products for compliance with the minimal name and location labeling requirements. Oversight would also be necessary to enforce an exemption based on the size of facility or a limitation on distribution. These proposed DACF staff functions appear to be label enforcement rather than any level of food safety technical support. And we want to make sure that's what we think this is saying.
Any questions for Mr. Dyer? House Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Dyer, thank you for your testimony. You're welcome. I'm happy to hear the department is supportive of. On the back page of the bill, there is a labeling requirement.
Yeah, we think what we propose is clearer. The statement is shorter and it's clearer. That would be, you might remember this bill was discussed 2 sessions ago, LD 1287, and I think the committee looked at that kind of language last time and approved it, but we thought it was clearer in the earlier version. But it's something you could discuss. Okay, I know you had some language in there to address that, though.
Yeah, it says that this food is exempt from licensing and inspection. It also says so for personal use only and not for resale, which I think is really important earlier.
That's something to talk about. We were shortening it up a little bit and thought it did the whole thing.
Okay, but if for some reason we didn't take that particular advice, would you not be satisfied with so for personal use only, not for resale? This food is exempt from licensing and inspection by the state.
Right. We would prefer to see this other language or this added in to that, but it's up to the committee what you might recommend.
Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Hendrick?
Great. Excuse me, Representative Hickman. It is Gideon's.
Oh, my.
Chairman Edgecombe, Representative Hickman, distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee. I am Henry Gideons of Brooklyn, Maine. I support all four bills you hear today, 925, 1284, 1291, and 1376. Today we celebrate the human right to food and the underlying social concepts of personal knowledge, trust, community, and individual responsibility on which the exercise of the right to food depends. This package of bills serves major economic aims and environmental needs facing Maine and the world. We grassroots organizers for local food know that personal knowledge, trust, community, and individual responsibility are not the creature of government, but the ground on which it rests. If they do not pre-exist, government cannot create them, but if government doesn't cultivate them, husband them, sponsor the supportive conditions in which such social resources can flourish, then not just local food suffers, but so does the whole body politic. Our personal knowledge about food is crucial to our encounters with it. We must use all our senses to judge the messages we need to act upon. In any food transaction, trust is always engaged. It may be trusting ourselves, or government inspectors, or Tradewinds Market. We are always implicitly trusting someone for the product, how it was processed, how it was handled, transported, and so on. Community comes in all sizes. Winthrop, the state of Maine, America, the global community, is always relevant to consider the support and strengths of the links that hold communities together, or don't, and to weigh them carefully. That which ties me as a member of the community, Blue Hill community, to the Redbirds Quills End Farm, is of a very different order, far more direct and immediate than the abstract links, say, tying the pharmacology of a CAFO operation to the FDA to whether my doctor's prescription of an antibiotic will subsequently work its magic on me. Finally, individual responsibility. No matter how elaborate the government apparatus, how sophisticated the technology, how well trained and available the inspectorate, each end consumer, each food preparer, every eater ultimately makes the individual decision on what to ingest. There's a cartoon in the text. In sum, it's the human, person-to-person linkages that these four bills are about. In the process of encouraging local foods, these bills support and restore farming occupations for young people, environmentally sustainable agriculture, and critical safeguards either against or to address the consequences of climate destabilization. This is one of those rare win-win situations. Vote ought to pass on all four.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow.
You made my day.
You knew how much time you had it timed right out. Did you have to practice on that beforehand?
I went through 5 different versions. Minus 4 seconds.
Wow. Very good. So tell me, where did this cartoon come from that you included here?
It was in my father's library. I ran across it when I was 11, and I've never forgotten it. I'm almost 80. And it's from Abner Dean's book called What Am I Doing Here? And the cartoon that's depicted here is his style. He always drew sensitively naked people, and he put them in situations that, in this particular instance, was way, way ahead of its time, because I take it now as kind of an allegory on the way the American food system has changed. It is now, our funnels are being dumped into, rather than the way it used to be, where we knew the farmers next door. I remember my mother going to purchase chickens and ducks just on the border of New York City to Great Neck, and we went down into a valley, and we picked out the bird, and they sacrificed it right there and dipped it in the scalding water, and the rubber fingers took the feathers off. We went home and had it. That's the way I grew up, even though I was in the city. And it's obviously changed. It's changed dramatically. And I don't think for the better. And I think there are real possibilities for Maine to recreate, restore, rebuild a way of growing food and connecting it to us personally and as communities that would be healthy for all of us, but also for the rest of the world as well.
That's good. Once in a while, you need to let young people know like it was back when we lived.
That's right. And by the way, all my seeds are in. At least that happened Sunday afternoon.
Representative Hickman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Did you get your corn planted already, too?
I don't do corn anymore. I got tired of feeding the raccoons.
It's a little early for that, but hey, maybe you got a microclimate, I don't know something about it.
My daffodils came out only 3 days ago. All at once. All 300 of them going, bah, you know how they do.
All right. Any further questions? Thank you for your very
Thank you very much.
testimony.
Thank you. Betsy Darrell.
We figured we'd entertain you today, you know, it's like, we think it's all.
It is food day.
It's been a
It
real
is
early-
food day.
an early garden.
I didn't grow that in my, well, not in this particular garden anyway. Good afternoon, Senator Edgecombe, Representative Hickman, and distinguished members of the committee. As you all know by now, I'm Betsy Gale from Knox. I represent Food for Maine's Future, local food rules, and the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund. I come here today to speak in favor of this afternoon's collection of local food bills. Today I'm going to tell you a story, and I brought props. In the early 1990s, I was a lieutenant in the U.S. Public Health Service stationed in a place we fondly called the Papaya Republic. The Republic of the Marsh